Hi, I'm the Autistic Critic. I make unfiltered reviews to help you choose. DreamWorks has a ton of underrated gems and classics that earned their status as such. One of their best attributes is their characters. Granted, they're not all created equal in quality, but when DreamWorks hits a home run, you're left with some of the funnest and most unforgettable characters in animation. They really left an impression on many of us, and there's a lot to say about why we love most of them. Speaking of love, in terms of characters, we're going to be looking at 10 of the best couples in DreamWorks' catalog. That's right, this is a Valentine's Day special. Before we begin, I have a couple ground rules. Not every DreamWorks movie or franchise has a romance. I omitted the clearly loveless movies from this list. Emphasis on movies. We're not counting TV shows. For franchises with TV shows spawned by movies, I'm strictly adhering to the couple's appearances in the movies. Also, I'm only taking canon couples. Like, if you're one of those Bad Guys fans who ship Wolf and Snake, this isn't the ranking for you. Sorry. Wake shippers. Is that what it's called? I have no idea. That also means for franchises with live-action installments like How to Train Your Dragon 2025 or Shrek the Musical, I'm only looking at how the couples are in the original canon. To be fully transparent, I have not seen every DreamWorks movie ever made, so for example, don't complain when the Ryan Reynolds Caveman and his Emma Stone GF aren't on the list. I haven't watched The Croods 2, and as such, I can't fairly judge them knowing only half their story. Call it an honorable mention. Rhymes with grub. Each franchise is allowed a maximum of 2 couples, because any more than that would be unfair. Spin-offs, however, will get an extra slot. When we get to the couple that warrants that point, I think you'll know why. Now let's see which couples truly make the dreams work. Now this was a tight list, so you'll likely realize which couples didn't make the cut by the end of this video. For example, I've seen Tulio and Chell or Moses and Zipporah take spots on lists like these, but I don't have the same long-term exposure to them as I do with characters from the franchises I grew up with. Because of that, I went with Melman and Gloria from the Madagascar series. They aren't a couple I've ever had a ton to say about, and the franchise treats their romance as a light side plot, and that's fine. When the plane is crashing in the second movie, he screams he loves her, but she's asleep for it. It's played as a joke, and that's great for what the franchise wants to accomplish. Romantic storylines in Madagascar movies aim for lower heights than most other DreamWorks films. That's not an insult, it's just a fact. Each movie shows an example of the value they put in each other. Gloria isn't sure how exactly to get to Grand Central to save Marty, but she trusts Melman enough to follow his directions even though he wants to stay behind at the zoo. He tells the superficial Moto to treat Gloria right, which makes her realize Melman's feelings for her, and later, she saves him from sacrificing himself in the volcano. Their tightrope routine in the third movie is pretty neat. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I've got to move it. I've got to move it!
To the wild! The wild? Whoa!
A trend you'll find with the dragons on this list is that they're nonverbal. The other couple is half silent. That probably gave away who's up later. Here, we have our only silent couple on the list, Toothless and the Light Fury. Their dynamic is strong enough to carry the story without words. The Light Fury is feisty and hates humans. Toothless is worried about being without Hiccup, and that makes sense. She finds Toothless's actions to core her off-putting. Those got some good laughs out of me. Toothless shows off his improved drawing skills when sketching her face in sand. I was impressed by that callback, and their flight together is captivating. In general, their romance shares some DNA with Rio. Toothless and Blue have their own special weaknesses when it comes to flying, while Jewel and the Light Fury are repelled by humans, but their male counterpart helps them open up while adjusting to their lack of domestication. It's almost like John Powell did the music for both franchises. Despite these similarities, Toothless and the Light Fury write their own love story. Overall, they're pretty cute together, even if their relationship tends to get overshadowed by another How to Train Your Dragon couple we'll get to. And speaking of dragons, I couldn't make a list like this without talking about Shrek now, could I? He and Fiona are obviously later in the list. To kick off our Shrek fix, here we have one of the most outlandishly creative pairings I've seen. Donkey and Dragon. It never occurred to me that Shrek and Donkey met their future wives on the same day in the same place. Yeah, Shrek was actively looking for Fiona, but it was just to hold up his end of his deal. Donkey and Dragon's romance isn't the focus of these movies by a long shot. So, even though it was obvious, I kinda glossed over the coincidence. Donkey accidentally catches Dragon's attention as she guards her castle, so when he has nowhere to go, gets talkative to save himself, only to charm her in the process. When Shrek unhappily returns to the swamp, Donkey and Dragon patch up so well that all it takes is a whistle from either him or Shrek to get her help. They got off to an awkward start, but they've built a better relationship since. And then there's not much to say about them as an item from then on. At least not in Shrek 2. After all, she's been all moody and stuff, so she's not in the movie until the mid-credits scene, where she reveals they've become parents to Donkey Dragon hybrid babies, otherwise known as Dronkies. That explains a lot. I've always wondered what she turned into when Donkey drank the happily ever after potion. According to the Shrek Wiki, she was turned into a Pegasus to mirror Donkey becoming a stallion. Everybody has their questions about how they managed to have kids despite being drastically different sizes. But I have a bigger question. Did Donkey ever explain to Dragon what happened when she found herself magically altered off screen? All of that aside, Donkey and Dragon proved size matters not. In fact, they perfectly fit the main conceit of Shrek, that it isn't a conventional fairy tale. Donkey values the company he has and brings out their best, even if said company doesn't always enjoy his antics, and Dragon is no exception. Wow, I had more to say about the Donkey ship than I thought.
Stuck in cheesesteak? Rats!
I adore Flushed Away. I'm not going to get too into it because I'm going to cover that when I do the Aardman ranking. When the pampered pet rat Roddy St. James gets flushed away, hey, that's the name of the movie. He is completely out of his element in the sewer. He is so desperate to get home that he finds himself right in the middle of a rivalry between scavenger Rita and crime lord Toad. She quickly gets irritated with the clumsy mishaps he accidentally gets her into during said rivalry. These antics are wacky and lead to some good laughs. After they choose to work together to achieve their individual desires, Millicent Bystander starts to look at his old life differently once he returns to Kensington. He'll go back to being Mr. Lonely if he stays up top. I gotta give them another thing. While Rita is super capable and Roddy starts off not like that, he begins to come up with solutions that prove to be effective at the end of the day, and she lets him go for them before they work. The combination of these personalities make for great shipmates. Meanwhile, the pairings I have ranked above Roddy and Rita have things that stand out to me more, either being more canonically explicit as lovers, appearing in more movies, or being satisfying to see together in more true-to-life ways.
It's called a hustle, sweetheart.
I'm a big fan of the Wolfington ship. They have more subtle bits of chemistry than most DreamWorks couples. I love the banter they bounce off each other. Sam Rockwell and Zazie Beetz do a great job voice acting. Anyways, now let's talk about the story. At the start of the first movie, Wolf tries to embarrass her for humiliating the bad guys on live TV by stealing an award. He slowly gets reformed, despite his initial intention that it's an act. Once he discovers how similar his and Diane's backgrounds are, both for the stereotype-based prejudice they experienced and the fact that she's the mysterious Crimson Paw, their connection is stronger than ever. Wolf's completely in awe, respecting that she managed to steal his car. When Diane is about to confess who she is to the police chief, Wolf butts in before she can, and she rolls along with the favor. I love that. By the way, I wrote this paragraph before I saw Bad Guys 2. Her secret was safe for the time, but that's where Bad Guys 2 comes in, so spoiler alert! First off, I love watching them practice boxing. They acknowledge the difficulties of a transition as an ex-con, and contemplate the reception they'd get from society over a relationship between them given their positions. This scene is charming, thought-provoking, and epic all at once. Then the bad girls blackmail the bad guys into participating in their heist, or else their leader, Kitty Cat, will reveal to the internet that Diane was the Crimson Paw. Hey, how did she get that footage, let alone get any? Back in the first movie, Wolf said the Crimson Paw was never identified. As expected, he doesn't want his medium friend outed. Meanwhile, Diane still has faith in the gang after the public turns against them again for a misconception and investigates what's going on. Unfortunately, the world finds out who she used to be despite our hero's best efforts to save her fur. My jaw was on the floor when this happened. During the climax, Wolf and Diane share their first kiss after she saves him from Kitty. Actually, scratch that. They don't kiss once because they do it twice. My feeder was an act, but I heard tiny clapping when that happened. Overall, I'm enthralled by the lengths these movies go to portray Wolf and Diane as soulmates in every sense of the word. Their early flirting is just the tip of the iceberg. Like him returning her ring when they're dancing together doesn't crack the top 5 best things either of these partners do in service of the other. We're talking about a GF who broke into a maximum security prison to save the falsely imprisoned bad guys, and she would later top that. Despite being tranquilized by the criminals who exposed her secret, Diane still managed to sneak onto a rocket ship to save her BF and his gang. This is a little thing, but I didn't notice it until my most recent rewatch. While having an angry mob on his tail, Wolf hurriedly gives Diane his hideout location on a map to forsake everything he stole. Just when you think these two couldn't get any better, they always do. I seem to remember a wise person once said, a wolf and a fox are not so different. I know I indicated I would only have 2 Shrek couples, but Puss in Boots isn't all Shrek movies, is he? This is where my spin-off rule comes in. If the first Puss in Boots movie centered on its main couple and not had the Humpty Dumpty stuff, it would have been good. Eventually, I plan to do a DreamWorks villains ranking, so we don't need to poach that egg here. Going back to couples, I can't believe how much I genuinely enjoy Puss and Kitty Softpaws together. It's always nice when a power couple comes out of a mid-movie, if not one of the movies of all time. Puss and Kitty meet when they circumstantially intervene in each other's heist. I enjoyed the dance fight in the glitter box, and this is where the movie peaks. Then Puss hits the cat in the head with a guitar, and just like the Lorax goes, "That's a woman?" Something was in the milk during the early 2010s. Oh wait, their meeting wasn't circumstantial because Kitty was sent by Humpty to bring Puss to him. I lied because I can't stand that egg. Puss tells Kitty his backstory to explain why he wants nothing to do with Humpty, and by the time he's done, she's fallen asleep. That made me laugh. This scene is paralleled by the part where she tells him why she doesn't have any claws. Those bits where they're defying gravity by dancing off each other's boots put live-action movies to shame. Even with all its kinetic energy and momentum, Greatest Showman wishes. Moving on to the second movie, I'm so glad they brought her back. Since Puss is very flirtatious, I could picture a universe where the filmmakers forgot Kitty and suddenly replaced her with a new love interest, like Wallace and Gromit or Indiana Jones installments have done. If I was going to choose any character from the first one to return for sequels other than the obligatory title role, I also would have picked Kitty. The Last Wish does wonders for me to propel the couple up to the top half of this list. It turns out between Puss in Boots and Shrek 2, they broke up off screen. I hate it when sequels do this, but the scene that explains what happened to them is so good, I can make an exception here. They were gonna get married, but Puss wasn't ready for such a commitment, and Kitty didn't show up either since she thought his ego overshadowed his love for her. Both explanations are reasonable, and you don't hate either for going down these roads. It also works wonders from an audience perspective because you gain an understanding of her absence from Puss's Shrek adventures from a canon standpoint. Over the course of The Last Wish, they patch up. Puss learns to value his life, while Kitty gains a trustworthy someone without having to wish for it. I still get misty-eyed when he tells her,
Kitty, one life spent with you is all that I could wish for.
Puss and Kitty have wonderful chemistry no matter the circumstance they're in. Even though Puss in Boots 1 is far from my favorite DreamWorks movie, and I don't think it's great overall, it did a good job establishing a couple for me to care about years later. I constantly root for Puss and Kitty, and that's exactly what you want from your main couple. What's not to love about them? I gotta give some props to team relationship.
Pink goes good with
Great.
The Trolls movies don't exactly rank very highly on a list of any kind, unless it's a DreamWorks Couples ranking. Poppy and Branch are the highlights of the movies for me. It's one of those film series where the main duo is so good at running the show that it usually leaves the viewer's memory of other characters barren. While Trolls Band Together marked the first time I genuinely cared about a character other than Poppy and Branch, my point stands for the first 2 movies. Poppy and Branch are as different as can be, with her being excitable and over-enthusiastic while he is cautious and sarcastic. In the first movie, they get on each other's nerves before growing to understand each other. The voice acting behind these 2 charms me. Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake are pitch perfect and in sync as these characters. They lose some points because I find it insane that Branch spends the entire second movie trying to confess his love to Poppy, even though they already did it when they sang True Colors in the first one. They get extra points to compensate because Trolls Band Together came in and said, hey, let's have Poppy and Branch progress as lovers and stay progressed. When John Dory picks up Branch like a baby, Poppy is not having that until she knows the 2 are brothers. She respects her boyfriend as a man and goes to bat for him. During Brozone's third act blow-up, Poppy and Branch talk things out and move along to the climax. I was so satisfied by that development. Personally, I've always gravitated toward Branch, while I see someone close to me in Poppy. Poppy's spontaneity and joy balance out Branch's practicality and caution, much like the dynamic I recognize in my own life. Plus, he and I both lost our grandmas when we were young. Granted, the memes are funny, but the scene made me cry as a 14-year-old since I knew how it felt. Poppy and Branch make for a great textbook case of opposites attracting, and their chemistry keeps me engaged. I wouldn't feel nearly as fond of Trolls as I come up if the main characters weren't so appealing and memorable, but thankfully, they are.
I have a really big ahead.
Megamind was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and it got better as the years went on. I'm happy it caught on with so many people by the late 2010s since, like the movie, I was ahead of my time. I'm impressed how well it speaks to people of different ages, and that applies to the love story this movie showcases. Growing up, Megamind was a societal reject, bullied and feared. So he began an enduring, epic, lifelong career as a supervillain. During his career, he kidnapped reporter Roxanne Ritchi countless times, but it was never personal. He did it just to get the attention of Metro Man. When he's gone and Megamind gets depressed, Minion suggests they kidnap her to cheer him up. Megamind replies,
"Good idea, Minion. But without him, what's the point?"
When Megamind and Roxanne start getting close while he's disguised as a Metro Man Museum's curator Bernard, you get the sense that Megamind deserves a shot at happiness. He deserves to choose a new path for himself, rather than conforming to the cards he was dealt for so long. While he's technically lying to her, he's not doing it out of malicious intent, and there's no way she'd give him a chance if she knew who he was. During the date, they have a really underrated exchange when he's alluding to his true appearance as a hypothetical. It's simultaneously sweet and funny, which makes the immediate aftermath pretty crushing. He asks Roxanne that if he were bald and had the complexion of a popular primary color as a random, non-specific example, would she still enjoy his company? She says yes, because rather than judge a book by its cover, one should judge something or someone based on their actions. Like he says, seems kinda petty, but she has a point. By the way, I love it later on when Megamind says, "We were smooching up a storm! Wah, wah, wah!" I never smooched up a storm, but I loved randomly saying that line as a kid because I found it really funny. We wouldn't have that without this scene. Once the mask, or in this case, the generated disguise is off, she pushes him away and calls him out for his aimless villainy. He insists he can explain, but his own poster says it all. No, you can't. She dumps him, and he lets her go. She's right to hate him, but we know he's become a better person through their time together. That's genuinely heartbreaking. After Titan gives in to his villainy, Megamind races to Roxanne, hoping they can work together on a solution to save the city. While calling out Metro Man on leaving Metrocity in Megamind's hands, she realizes her offense, but Megamind agrees with her on the blame. That's pretty funny. Afterwards, Megamind and Minion pull off clever tricks and take down Titan. The former one because he had a reason to win. Her. Overall, the romantic plotline is genuine and brilliant. You don't really see it coming at first glance, but nonetheless, it makes perfect sense within the narrative. Megamind's transformation into a hero is satisfying to watch unfold, and this relationship plays a key role in getting him there. The first few couples have been good, and 6th place onward have been great so far, but these top 2 are some of the most remarkable couples in animation history, capable of rivaling even Disney's finest. We're in top-tier, unbeatable territory now. To start off, let's talk about everyone's favorite ogres. It's hard to argue that Shrek and Fiona aren't the most iconic DreamWorks couple, because they are. That's enough to prop them up this high. At the same time, they're far from perfect. When Shrek and Fiona meet, it's not love at first sight. They frequently come into conflict in more ways than one. Shrek's just rescuing her so he can get his swamp back. He defies her expectations at every turn during this part of the quest, and her attitude isn't making his job easier. Upon overhearing Shrek talking to Donkey about how he's been unfairly judged for his appearance, she realizes, perhaps I treated Shrek too harshly. To make a long story short, she and Shrek realize how much they have in common to get married, but their story doesn't end there. In the sequels, it turns out Shrek unknowingly sabotaged the plans of others by rescuing Fiona, making enemies out of those people. Fiona's father finds it obscene that his daughter married an ogre, especially since he's indebted to Fairy Godmother. Fearing he will lose her, Shrek drinks a potion to become handsome, which also changes Fiona. When they have a chance to stay in these forms, Fiona declines in favor of them being who they were before. That's love. In spite of occasional friction and anyone threatening to tear them apart, Shrek and Fiona pull through and prove to be each other's true love. However, they walked so another couple could fly. First place was never up for debate. That honor goes to Hiccup and Astrid. Not only are they a perfect loving team, but it impresses me how naturally they become that. In the first movie, Hiccup has a crush on Astrid, but she doesn't give him the time of day since he's a clumsy dork, a wingnut, and a knucklehead McSpazatron! Once he starts subduing dragons in training, everyone on Berk is impressed while this gets her goat. Then she catches up to him and gets the shock of her life in the form of Toothless. But Hiccup takes her on a ride that changes her notions about him and the dragon. Thanks to these events, they get the most beautiful love scene in all of DreamWorks. Whenever I watch the romantic flight sequence, I kind of forget I'm watching a story because it's just that magical. This scene goes a long way in making it believable that Astrid is going from hating dragons and not respecting Hiccup to standing by him and his newfound cause. She understands his motivations deeply and lifts him up in times of apparent defeat. She wants to remember what he says, and she asks why he didn't kill a dragon when the rest of their people would have done it. That determination speaks volumes about her faith in him. Their time together off the battlefield and on is so amazing. They have too many good moments to count. I love the part in the second movie where he's impersonating his dad to express what's going on, and she teases Hiccup's quirks. It provides important exposition while making for a cute interaction between them. She's willing to defy Stoic's orders if it means making sure Hiccup, and by proxy, the rest of Berk will be safe. Even though that doesn't go well, the thought counts. The third film has some of my favorite bits between them, such as the cliffside callback to the first movie, when she tells him,
I am the person I am today because of you.
It's not just an empowering statement for Hiccup, it's a reflection on everything they've been through together. I always find it satisfying when she throws a zipperback grenade and he throws his fire sword at Grimmel's minions, causing an explosion, all while Astrid's beam swells. This is romantic cinema. Personally, these characters impacted my real life. I'll never forget going to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish with my best friend and seeing the new DreamWorks logo. She was hyped to see the bad guys pop up, and I was stoked when Toothless did. She turned to me and asked, "Who's that?" I couldn't believe my ears, so 2 years later, we watched the first How to Train Your Dragon, and she got really into it. We dressed up as Astrid and Hiccup for last year's Erie Comic-Con since they're our favorite characters from the franchise. At one point that day, we reenacted the part where Astrid finds Toothless. This outing was a ton of fun, and I'm happy we did it. We wore those costumes again that Halloween, and no one is more satisfied or more proud than I am. When I go to Epic Universe, I'll get her an Astrid plushie. She'll appreciate it. Honestly, I can't think of another DreamWorks couple whose story mirrors my own on the level I described. Just like Hiccup, I've shown my Astrid the light. I have scripts for reviews of the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy I'll turn into videos, but in the meantime, I'm just glad I have a chance to talk about Hiccup and Astrid specifically. Nobody embodies partnership quite like them in the DreamWorks pantheon of lovers. Even if it wasn't for my personal anecdote, I'd just have to list the things they do together to justify why they should be number one. As an item, no one just gets as good as they do. Hiccup and Astrid are, without question, my favorite DreamWorks couple of all time. Or is it always gonna be this way? 'Cause I could get used to it. So that was my ranking of the top 10 DreamWorks couples. This studio is such a titan. No, titan is a bad word. It's quite a chief in crafting relationships since they branch out into all sorts of different shapes and sizes, sometimes even uniting things that don't conventionally go together. They make us laugh, smile, or even get our hearts soaring. Do you agree with my choices? Let me know which couples you would have liked to see included on the list. In the end, it's the stories we share and the love we root for that stick with us forever. I'm the Autistic Critic, and happy Valentine's Day, viewers, provided that this video is being watched on the holiday of its release.